It's time for a confession from my 9-year-old daughter. I think it's going to be really therapeutic for her.
My name is Claire, and I'm a Brady Bunchaholic.
She's watched every episode at least 3 times, and she's such a fan that the first experiment I'm going to share in this episode full of experiments is a new game we've invented. Actually, it was my husband who invented it. Here's how it goes.
Tell me a Brady Bunch episode that has something to do with a kite.
Okay, so season 1, in an episode called Kitty Carryall is Missing, Bobby loses his kazoo, and he looks in his pocket, and there's some, like the thing that you hold that with string around it that is attached to a kite.
Okay, tell me a Brady Bunch episode that has something to do with a barbecue.
Okay, so in season 2, I think it's actually episode 3, titled The Babysitters. So Greg and Marsha are babysitting, and the parents and Alice sneak in to check on them, and they smell smoke. But it's actually from the Dittmeyers, which are their neighbors, and they're having a barbecue.
This is the How She Moms podcast with Whitney Archibald. I'm a mother of 5 on a mission to help moms connect with your kids, manage your homes, and create your own unique version of motherhood. I curate ideas from different moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. As you may have guessed by the intro, one of the main themes for this episode is going to be screen time, as there may or may not have been a little bit too much of that going on in the Archibald home lately. And not so coincidentally, today's sponsor is Better Screen Time, which I'll talk about more later. But you know me, I've always got lots of experiments going on in my home laboratory, so we'll start by talking about our current bedtime and morning routines, physical fitness, teen driving, chores, and my recent life-changing surgery. I'll also do a little Christmas post-mortem to talk about what worked and what didn't this holiday season. After I tackle tech, I'll also share some experiments for How She Moms itself. Let's start with routines. We're going through a rough patch as far as mornings go, mainly because one of my sons just will not get out of bed in the morning. My other middle schooler is fed up with being late, so I reinstated the policy where the car leaves on time with or without him. If I have to come back and get him, he pays a $5 Uber fee. In fact, he ended up paying me $15 last week. It did not feel like my tactic was working. But this morning he popped right up, so I'm optimistic. And at least my other son is getting to school on time now. Another addition to our morning routine is that I started waking my kids up with a glass of water. To drink, of course, but I may have also used an ounce or 2 last week to drizzle over the son I was just mentioning. To speed up that waking process. Did that work? No. He just let me drizzle and kept on sleeping. I started the water thing because, number 1, they've just gone a long time without drinking, and it feels good to wake up with a drink. Number 2, I've been working on staying more hydrated myself, and I realize they're probably not drinking enough water either. And 3, it gets them sitting up and waking up right away. One of my favorite new things for our routines, though, is that Abel, my 3rd son, asked me if he could make a checklist for his morning, afternoon, and bedtime routines. You heard that right. He asked me. Of course, I already had one ready from a year or 2 ago, so we just had to update it. Then my daughter saw his checklist and wanted one too. Big yes. Now they both walk around with their clipboards before and after school, getting it done. When Abel actually wakes up, that is. I'll include the routine charts on the page for this episode at howshemoms.com just in case you want a starting point for your own kids. The last routine experiment I've been trying lately is at bedtime. As is typical for the youngest child, my 6-year-old's bedtime has been creeping later and later, first leading up to Christmas and then especially during winter break. We're talking like 10 o'clock. Not good. Then, of course, school started and he was just not getting enough sleep. I tried to get his sleeping back in hand, but he just wouldn't stay in bed or go to sleep. Reading to him helped a bit, but not for long. So I decided he needed a bigger incentive to get into bed earlier. So now we play a game every night in his bed, taking turns choosing which game we play. I give him a dedicated window from about 7:30 to 8. But the longer he takes to get ready for bed, the less time he has for the game. And if he comes out afterwards, he doesn't get a game the next night. It's working great so far, and we're both having a lot of fun with the games. Now let's talk exercise. Typically, the only winter sport for any of my kids is skiing, because we don't want any other sports interfering with skiing. The problem is, skiing doesn't happen nearly as much as we'd like because it's an all-day thing and it's hard to get up there. So every year we try to figure out how to keep everyone physically active. This fall, though, a climbing gym opened up right by our house, and it's amazing. My kids, like me, are just small people, so climbing is much better suited to our body types than, say, basketball. So we got a family membership, and it's been so much fun. One of my favorite parts about it is that we get to make our own schedule. I'm not driving kids in a billion different directions. It's even within biking distance, so the older kids can just ride over in good weather. To make sure we actually go and that we make the membership worth it, I schedule our climbing sessions on the calendar each week and make sure we go at least twice, but usually 3 times a week. I've always loved rock climbing, and I love it for my kids because they're cheering each other on, belaying each other, and really pushing themselves to literally reach their goals. So that's why we signed up in the first place. I was excited to also climb once in a while and refresh my old skills, but I was mostly just helping the kids and not doing much climbing myself. But then I met a woman who works there and also coaches a high school team. She's 10 years older than me and an awesome climber. She started me thinking, and then I decided I'd take a movement class from her. I learned some great techniques that have really improved my climbing, but more than that, she helped me realize that I'm not washed up yet. I don't have to settle for goals like getting back to my previous ability level. I can actually get better than I've ever been. I've got goals, my friends. By the end of the year, I want to level up to be able to climb a 5'11" easily and finish a 5'12" project. If you're not a climber, just know that that's way harder than I ever thought I'd be able to climb. I'm about a 5'10" climber right now. I figured out a regularly scheduled climbing date with a friend once a week, and I take a few turns myself now when I go with the kids. I'm going to be taking more classes, and I'm so excited about getting back into this. Climbing may not be your thing, but what is? What have you put on the back burner or just accepted as a plateau when you could actually get better? Playing the piano, dancing, lifting weights, riding, scuba diving? You're not washed up yet either. I'm still also lifting weights once a week with another friend, which has been amazing, mostly at preventing injuries. A few years ago, I just kept getting stupid minor injuries, and now that I'm getting strong and balanced, not so much. It may not be a season for you to be able to fit things like this in. I've barely just gotten here myself where all my kids are in school, but I bet there's something that you can fit into your current schedule that will help you continue to learn and grow. But I'm going to be really transparent here. The main reason that I'm enjoying all of these physical activities is that I no longer wet my pants while I'm doing them. Yes, you heard me right. So my biggest experiment this fall was that I finally decided to get a surgery I've needed for 16 years now, ever since my first delivery ruined my bladder control. By the time I had a few more kids, I had to wear a pad full time, and I even had my own diaper genie in my bathroom. Trampolines, jump rope, don't be ridiculous. But also things like coughing, laughing, sneezing, even walking. A few years ago, I did about 6 months of physical therapy, trying to see if I could fix the problem that way, but it turns out my problem was a little bigger than that, and it really just needed surgery. So, after making excuses for a couple of years and never quite finding the right time to be out of commission for 6 weeks, I finally just decided to go for it this November, and oh my goodness, it has been amazing. It fixed the problem at hand, for sure, but it actually fixed some other things too, most notably my insomnia. I didn't realize that I always just kind of low-key had to pee when I went to bed, but once this surgery was fixed, that constant urge was gone, and I slept like I had not slept since before I had children. It was incredible. Waking up out of a sleep like that for the first time, I felt like a new woman. It was amazing. I can't tell you how incredible it is to just be able to pick up and dance with my kids when they want to dance, or run a spontaneous race without having to worry what was going to happen. I can go out of the house without wondering where the bathrooms are going to be or how many pads I need to bring with me. It's just a major change in my lifestyle. So again, like in the last category, I'm going to challenge you. If there's something about your health that you've been putting off, stop making excuses and at least look into getting it taken care of. I'm actually going to be putting together a series of episodes about how we heal our bodies and minds after childbirth. So if you have any stories about any kind of healing after childbirth, please send me an email at whitney@howshemoms.com. I would love to be able to hear and share your story, even if it's anonymously. Another brand new experiment that's been going on for a while now is our first teen driver. My oldest is already 16, but due to some newbie mistakes on my part, won't be getting his license until March. I thought it would be a scary experiment teaching a kid to drive, but Jonas is actually a really great driver. Maybe because of all of his biking experience, I don't know. But once the license comes, that's where the real experiments begin. First of all, what do you do about a car? He definitely wants one, but he's also definitely not getting a nice one like so many of the cars in his school parking lot. And if we do get another car, it won't be his, it will be another family car that he can drive and eventually share. But I'm hesitant even about that. First of all, his school's only 3 miles away and he usually bikes there now, even in the winter. It's awesome. It starts his day off great and gives him a little extra exercise. Plus, it's good for the environment and he doesn't have to sit in parking lot traffic. He actually gets home faster than the people who drive cars. Second of all, at least the way it is right now, the 2 cars we have just sit parked 3 miles apart for most of the day because my husband's office is so close to home and my car's just in the garage. If we got a third car, we'd have 3 cars sitting mostly idle within 3 miles of each other. It just seems so unnecessary. So we've told him that we'll share our 2 cars until the inconvenience outweighs the cost. Whatever we end up doing, by the time I do my next experiments episode, I'll be able to report back on what it's like having another legal driver in the family. The next category of experiments is chores. If you listen to the new course I just released about sharing family work, you'll know that the experiment of using the latest iteration of my charts with my kids have been going great. If you haven't listened, you can listen for free in episodes 80 and 81. Anyway, my kids are all currently working on leveling up from helpers to workers or from workers to managers in at least one category. Still not many managers who don't need to be reminded to do their chores, but we'll get there. One of the things that's helping me to motivate them is that we started choosing a worker of the week, someone who goes above and beyond to either take care of themselves or take care of the family. The first winner was my 6-year-old who surprised us by tidying up the basement and his room because he was just so excited his cousins were coming. For the award, I found a trophy at Target that has a dry erase plate on the front so you can change out the name. Then I just stuck a peppermint patty in it. He was so thrilled to be the first winner, he gave a speech and everything. I'm hoping that his enthusiasm encourages the other kids to be excited enough about it to put in a little effort. And if the enthusiasm doesn't do it, maybe the candy will. In the music department, we have a new instrument in the family. Abel now plays the violin. He's super excited about it, so it'll be fun to see him improve. It's also been much less annoying than I thought it would be to have a beginning violinist scratching around. Jonas has been mostly teaching himself guitar since COVID stopped his lessons, but we've also found a new great teacher for him, and he's super excited about it. The other 3 are still doing piano, and I'm also teaching one student who homeschools because I only wanted to teach while my kids are in school. It's way too busy afterwards. I've always loved teaching piano, so it's pretty fun for me. I've also been trying a different approach with Miles and Claire lately, where I have them split their practicing into thirds based on the 3 skills I care most about: sight reading, working on a project song, and playing by ear or with a fake book. For a practice incentive, lately I've been buying Jolly Ranchers or other hard candy that they can suck on while practicing, a sneaky little Pavlovian experiment to give them pleasant associations with practicing. We also performed at a retirement home in December and plan to go back every month or 2 so the kids have a place to perform and a deadline for getting their songs down. We put together a set list that involves both playing their instruments and singing. Now let's talk about Christmas for a minute. I know that's long gone from your minds because it's the end of January, but I always like to do a post-mortem in that week between Christmas and New Year's when Christmas is still fresh in my mind and think about really the whole month of December and what went well and what didn't, what we want to continue for the next year and what we do not want to continue. So that Christmas program at the retirement home was definitely a highlight of the Christmas season, partly because I love having the house full of Christmas music as the kids all practice their music. That's how I grew up, and for me, Christmas is a lot about the music. I cut a lot of corners this year trying to simplify, but I realized that music is something I never want to simplify. I love singing music with church choirs and with my family around Christmas time. I accidentally simplified our Christmas lights this year because our house painters took down the hooks we usually use. By the time I figured out what we wanted to do instead and ordered what we needed, it was just 2 weeks before Christmas, and I wasn't going to put them up just to take them right down. I thought this would be kind of liberating not to have to deal with the lights, but honestly, I just felt really grinchy and like we weren't fully participating, and my kids felt the same. So next year, I'll get that ladder out and put up the lights again. Something I thought would be fun, but turned out not to be, was doing the 12 days of Christmas for a family. I know that sounds bad, and I loved figuring out what gifts to give and the idea of a family opening one present a night, but I also realized that I do not have the logistical bandwidth in December to make sure all the presents were wrapped and to deliver them 12 nights in a row. A few nights in, my kids got tired of helping with the drop-off, and by the end it was just me remembering way too late at night that we hadn't dropped it off and sneaking it onto their porch. If we ever do it again, maybe I'll just drop all 12 gifts off at once. I do hope the family enjoyed them, but next year we'll choose a different way to serve another family. It's weird, but this was also the first year we ever drove around specifically to see the neighborhood Christmas lights. That's especially ironic since it's the year I didn't put any up. But every year the HOA puts together a great list of the really decked out houses in the neighborhood, and this year we decided to try it out. We had so much fun singing carols and being amazed at the great lengths some of these families go to with their Christmas lights. We had no idea how extreme it was, even in our neighborhood. We just haven't happened to drive down those specific streets. Other than those things, our Christmas traditions stayed pretty much the same as usual, and it was a pretty great season. Now let's talk tech. The month of December was a bit of a tech free-for-all in our family, as you heard from the intro. In fact, it really started in November when we started having network problems and I couldn't use Circle to control our TVs. We've used Circle, a parental control device, for several years now. It basically allows me to control the Wi-Fi in our house, filtering content for specific kids and devices and setting time limits. When it's working, I can pause all the TVs until chores and homework is done and set bedtimes, etc. When the network went wacko and I couldn't use Circle, TV kind of became the default when the kids got home from school, and then I would get really busy making dinner and helping one of the others with homework or music, and suddenly I'd realize that my 6-year-old had watched 2 hours of cartoons on a school night. My kids, however, were loving it. One son decided to rewatch his favorite show, Psych, and as you heard earlier, my daughter decided to become an honorary member of the Brady family. Others spent hours playing Minecraft on our computers. I'm exaggerating a bit, it's not all they did, but it was way more than I was comfortable with. Screen time had become the default activity, and I do not like defaults. We eventually were able to get the network fixed, but they definitely still wanted more screen time, and it was still a battle. Then came the great Xbox campaign. Somehow, we had gotten to the point where we had a 16-year-old son without giving in and buying any kind of game console. The kids have played Minecraft on our computers for years, so we weren't completely game-free, but no console. We tried to convince our oldest son that it would be so cool and unique if he could say at high school graduation that he had made it through his entire childhood with no console, but he wasn't buying that. And so, in the spirit of experimentation and with all sorts of promises from the kids about setting boundaries, we caved and decided they could get an Xbox for Christmas. With fatefully good timing, my friend Andrea Davis, who runs Better Screen Time, contacted me in December to invite me to take the new version of her online course, Creating a Tech Healthy Family. You might remember Andrea from episode 68, How Andrea Davis Manages Screen Time. This class of hers was just what I needed as I tried to rehabilitate our family's tech plan that had gone so far off the rails. I liked it so much that I asked Andrea to sponsor this podcast for the month of January, and she's giving How She Moms listeners 20% off for the rest of the month, which means you have about a week if you want to sign up. Just use the code HowSheMoms at checkout. One thing I really love about the course is that the first 2 modules of the course didn't involve the kids at all. It's about the adults in the family figuring out their own relationship to tech and defining our values. I'm pretty familiar with Andrea's philosophies here, but I still learned a lot and went through some good exercises. They helped me evaluate my own defaults and helped me create a more deliberate and disciplined approach to social media specifically, and helped me carve out some tech-free time and space for myself. Eventually, we got to the part of the course where we started setting boundaries, and that's kind of where we still are. Andrea is a strong proponent of involving the kids in this process, really having them lead it, and that's where the experimentation has come in. We're very much still in the thick of it, and we haven't really found the right formula yet, but this episode isn't called How Whitney Solved All Her Problems, is it? Andrea's course included a great worksheet setting screen time boundaries, so we're using that to figure out the family rules. Since we're not done with those rules, I'll share a few of our experiments. Big surprise, the first time boundaries my kids wanted to set were none. I decided to let them try this during the second week of winter break. The kids were excited about their new Xbox, it was a vacation, and I just let them enjoy it. They loved it as much as I thought they would. And I actually liked it more than I thought I would. They were having so much fun together and doing a pretty good job of sharing. I'd hear the laughter coming from the basement and smile. I decided this Xbox wouldn't be so bad and would even help me teach them some time management skills. So I took them up skiing on Monday, January 3rd, the day before school started back up, and I started phase 1 of a little time management lesson. We listened to Laura Vanderkam's TED Talk called How to Gain Control of Your Free Time. It's really great, and it's also pretty short and kept my kids' attention. At her suggestion, we did this exercise where you imagine you're writing next year's Christmas card, and we talked about what we wanted to accomplish by the end of the year and how we wanted to spend our time. There was a lot of silliness and fun, of course, but we also talked about real stuff we wanted to do. And I didn't even mention video games in this conversation, even though it's why I was talking about time management. Then school and reality hit. The first week, I said they could still play anytime they wanted as long as homework, kitchen jobs, music practice, exercise, and one of their weekly chores was done. It was awesome at first. They did such a good job of getting their chores and homework done so they could play. They were proving they could handle it. But by week 2, the honeymoon was over. They were sneaking down to play before they got anything done and fighting over Xbox time. As for me, I now had another thing to monitor. I started to hate the Xbox as much as I thought I would. When Saturday came around, it was all they wanted to do. That Sunday, we had part 2 of the family meeting I started on the ski trip, where I gave them each a pile of 168 beans, 1 bean for every hour of the week, inspired by Laura Vanderkam's book, 168 Hours. Unfortunately, it was actually a much better idea in my head. It was quite tedious counting out that many beans, even with the kids' help, and they got all over the place. But the idea was that they could get a visual of how much time they spend doing different things during the week. By the time we accounted for sleep and school, there weren't many beans left. They thought about how much time homework and instruments and exercise would take, plus church activities and about 4 hours a week at the climbing gym, and suddenly there was very little time left over. Then we looked at their average screen time for the week, and it just didn't add up. Luckily, one of my sons was smart enough to find us a free pie chart app, which is much more user-friendly than the beans to help us visualize the time we have each week. So I recommend doing that if you want to do this exercise. Anyway, I told them they had one more chance to be able to play the Xbox during the school week. And that week did go a little better, but it was still really annoying, with skirmishes over who got to pick the game and lots of fudging about homework and chores being done. On a couple of the days, I hid the controllers and didn't hand them over until I had inspected all of their work, but that was pretty annoying too. So that Sunday, I tried a new experiment. I printed out a sign-up sheet with 1-hour slots and told them that they could each be in charge of the TV for an hour, whether they wanted to watch TV or play games on it. The problem with that was that things just come up. Some kids' time started later than expected and then got cut off for dinner or bedtime, etc. And again, it was one more thing to manage. So this week, I get to pick the experiment. I finally figured out the Xbox parental controls, at least I think I do, and I restricted them to weekends only. We're still doing teen time, where the middle school and high schoolers stay up a little later and watch or play something while I put the littles to bed, so I can give them bonus time if they've got their stuff done by then. Of course, they're not happy about this week's experiment, but I'm quite excited to see how the week goes. After this week, we'll have another family meeting to evaluate all the different experiments and try to firm up our Xbox phone and TV boundaries. I'm asking especially the older kids to come up with a plan that they think will work for both me and for them, so it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. It's also a little bit tricky because we'll definitely have to have family rules and boundaries, but there's also a wide age range, from 6 to 16, so we will have to customize the rules a little bit to different ages and stages. Do I regret buying the Xbox? Yes, and I knew I would. It's definitely created more work for me, wasted a lot of my kids' time, and caused some fights. Do I also think it's probably a good way to teach my kids about boundaries, time management, and self-control? Also yes. So we'll keep working on it and keep you updated. This is definitely hard work. The last thing I want to talk about today is some of the experiments I'm doing with How She Moms itself. My favorite part about doing this podcast is interviewing and meeting so many wonderful people, being able to write so much, and just the whole craft of putting episodes together. I love it so much. I love the audio side and being able to incorporate so many voices, ideas, and stories. It's just a really fun medium, even better than just writing. What I don't love and what I'm not very good at is the business and marketing side of things. Now that I've got the technical podcasting stuff figured out and I have a good writing and interviewing system down, I've realized that it's time to focus on learning some of the other aspects of running a podcast. So I'll be doing lots of experiments to grow my audience and sell some of the resources that I've created. One experiment that I'm really excited about was that I hired a fantastic web designer, Erica Christensen, to entirely revamp my website. Now that I have such a big catalog of episodes on so many topics, I wanted a place where you could go with a parenting problem and be able to find an answer quickly. Right off the bat, you can see a ton of topics you can click on and link to episodes and other resources to help you solve that problem. And then we've also created some collections of episodes, like the most popular episodes, series of episodes that go together, etc. I'm hoping this will make my back episodes much more accessible and helpful. My other big project was releasing my new course at the beginning of this month called How She Shares Family Work in episodes 80 and 81. Since I'm still working on growing my audience, I decided to make this course free and just charge for the charts that go with it, designed by my talented graphic designer, Mackenzie Carlisle of Carlisle Creations. I'm not sure if that was a great move, but so far I've sold a few, and it's pretty exciting, actually. If you're one of my listeners who bought them, thanks so much. If you've been considering it, I really do think you'll love them as a way to help teach your kids responsibility, divide labor in your household, and make invisible work visible. I've been tweaking them for my own family for many years, and I love the way they've finally evolved. This course is a strategic level course that really gives an overview of everything that goes into managing a home and family. So I'll use this as the basis to create a bunch of other courses that drill down to the tactical and logistical level of creating systems. In fact, I've already released workshops on laundry and meal planning, which, for now at least, you can also access for free while I figure everything out. You can also buy the workbooks that go along with those courses, which I think are really helpful. I'd love to hear any feedback on the courses or about courses you wish I would write. You can always email me at whitney@howshemoms.com. Mostly, I just want to figure out how to keep creating this podcast and learning from this great community of moms. I'm nearing my 3rd anniversary, and it's just been such an honor to be able to keep creating this podcast. Whenever I do an experiment episode, I don't expect that anybody's going to go off and try and duplicate any of the specific experiments that I talk about. But I do hope that it gets your mind working about what kind of different things you can try in your family, what's working, what isn't working so well, and how you can just tweak things a little bit and make your own home into an experimental laboratory. Thank you so much for listening to the How She Moms podcast and for being part of this community. There are so many other ways for you to connect and hopefully also contribute. I share tips and ideas regularly on Instagram and Facebook at How She Moms. You can find past episodes and other resources at howshemoms.com. And you can always just email me directly at whitney@howshemoms.com. Special thanks to my own wonderful mom, Susan Singley, for recording my theme music. She played this song all the time when I was growing up, and to me, it's the soundtrack of motherhood.